Well, this is a fun topic today. I love it, so I'm so glad to be here and that we get to explore it together. As you know, we're exploring the world's religions, and for those of you who weren't here, the very first Sunday of the month, I was inviting us to really look at our own path, that everyone here has their own unique path. No one's looked like anyone else, and that we are the chief executive officer of our path, that we claim what it is. We have to do all the discovery process. So the whole year is just this continual discovery of what does my path look like? What are its roots? The depth of it? What's the width? What's in the cosmology of my path? What are the goals or intentions, the highest intentions of my path? So today we're going to actually look at Hinduism's paths towards God, to waking up. Last week we looked at the multiple desires and embracing all of our desires. And that eventually the desires get to a point where the primary desire becomes, I want to wake up. I want to know my oneness and union in God. And so Hinduism offers these 4 paths as a ways to wake up to our oneness and union in God. Today I'm going to focus on the first 3. I'm not going to do the 4th one, which is the experiential part of knowing God. Raja Yoga, it's called the Royal Method. And that's really meditation, why so many people left Western churches for many years, going off the East because they wanted to have the direct contact with God. It's very, very alive in our Science of Mind teaching. I think it's the primary or predominant path of Centers for the teaching for Centers for Spiritual Living. So there's a lot there. So we're going to spend all of Sunday next week talking about that particular path. So today we're going to talk about the other 3. And we're going to begin with the first. Well, before we begin, I want to emphasize what we heard in the reading today, which is that we don't want to ever get limited ourselves to one path and say, well, that's my path. That all 4 of these paths are active and alive within us, and we want to listen not from the we can say which one is predominant, maybe, but as he said, different situations, different aspects of ourselves will be called forth. I think one of the greatest dangers about, as you all know, I don't like anything that really labels us, because Spirit has no labels. Spirit doesn't say, I'm Bhakti, here I'm Jnana. You know, it's all of it. And it's this wonderful energy flow and what just is called forth at different times. So we don't want to limit ourselves, but we can look at where do we tend to, where is a predominance. Just interesting to explore. Another interesting thing to explore as we're listening to these paths is, do I reject any of them? Are there any one of them that I just say, that is so not me. You know, I'm all these other, I can see aspects of the other 3, but definitely not that one. And that's the place where we get to do a little bit of work, because we're all of them. And there's a reason why, usually there's an unhealed reason why we're rejecting one of the paths. So notice if there's one that you just sort of constrict a little around, or I don't like that one. So the first path we're going to explore is called Jnana Yoga, which is the yoga of knowledge. Interestingly, these 4 yogas are what Carl Jung based the Myers-Briggs on. You know, the Myers-Briggs, sensing, feeling, thinking, intuiting. So he calls it thinking in the Myers-Briggs. I always heard it as knowledge. I want to say first what it's not, and then we'll go into what it is. One of the things that Houston Smith says in his book is it's the fastest path to God. It's the fastest path to waking up. I read this the first time back in 1992, so I was aware of that, and I don't know why he says that. And then I read Yogananda, who then says, no, Raja Yoga is the fastest path to God. And so I've read the Bhagavad Gita several times now, which is where these 4 paths come from. And Bhagavad Gita is a chapter, there's a big mythic tale in Hinduism called the Mahabharata, and the Bhagavad Gita is a chapter in there, which is the Song of God. And nowhere in there does it say any one of the paths are faster than the other. So I don't know where people get that their paths are the fastest. The fastest path is your path. The moment you try to take someone else's path, anyone else's path, you're already on a slower path. So just be true to yourself, and we'll let that one go. Another thing that he said, which I will return to in a minute, is he was saying that it's of the 4 paths, the path least taken. And I don't necessarily agree with that either anymore. I think we've changed and we've evolved as a world. But he did, so I just want to highlight that. The other thing I want to say about the path of knowledge of what it's not limited to just academic knowledge. I think sometimes when we hear that word, we think of people who love to sit in a library and read lots of books and gain a lot a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things. They're big researchers. They're philosophers who write very complex treatises on the existence of a tulip. I don't know. They're very heady, and he talks about it. It's like people in the Jnana Yoga and the path of knowledge live from their head. I don't think that's limited to that. It can include that, but I don't think the path of knowledge is limited to that. So here's what I do think it is. We'll start with mindfulness. If you read the section in the book about path of knowledge, reflection, he's basically describing what we call mindfulness meditation. That's where we separate ourselves from our human personality to this infinite I am that is always witnessing. So right now there is a presence that is witnessing you. Everyone has it. It's the I am. So there you can just sort of be outside your body and look at your body right now. You can watch your being, right? Everyone, you don't have to even close your eyes to do it. You just be conscious of your physical body. You can be conscious of that part of you that's been witnessing you, and that part that's been witnessing you has been witnessing you your whole life. It's never changed. It's never gotten old. It's never gotten younger. It doesn't have opinions. It just witnesses. It's this vast, infinite I am presence. And then we can, as we practice this, work on it, we can actually start to watch our thoughts. See, we think that we're our thoughts, but as we start really identifying more with this witness, we recognize that we have thoughts, but we have them. Who has them? This I am. So we can start witnessing our thoughts and recognizing we're free from our thoughts. So it becomes this path of wisdom and discernment of being able to discern between the infinite I am presence that is ever present and this finite personality that has been birthed into time and space. And then as people practice that and really give themselves to this path, they start to shift. Like normally I think of myself as this body-mind called Harriet, but then you start shifting into the I am. And I identify more with the I am who speaks about Harriet, who feels sort of Harriet almost in a third person kind of sense. So this mindfulness meditation, interestingly, has been around for thousands of years, but it's really come alive in the spiritual progressive world, I would say, in the last 20 or 30 years. Even more than the other paths. So when I was at Agape, maybe because it was Reverend Michael, who's the minister there, his path, but everybody practiced Vipassana meditation. Not everybody, but many people practice mindfulness meditation. It was everywhere. I see it everywhere. They're taking it into schools, mindfulness meditation. David Lynch, the director, he does big workshops with mindfulness meditation. Jim Carrey, mindfulness meditation. There's just everywhere, it's sort of beginning to permeate our culture, this mindfulness meditation. So it's so where it once was maybe not a very largely practiced teaching path, this path of knowledge, wisdom, discernment, because you get greater discernment when we're more removed and aren't attached to things. And the more we identify with the I am, we lose attachment and resistance. We're freer, we're open, we're vaster. We're becoming to become that in our spiritually progressive, maturing world. But that's not the only aspect of this path of reflection. Because there's also the idea that the path of wisdom, knowledge, is ideas are alive. People on this path who have this preponderance of a path, like hear an idea, they don't just move on to the next idea. An idea grabs them and it's alive, it's living, and it starts to percolate inside of us. And we start just going, and you just sort of stop everything and just let that idea percolate. So many of the founders of New Thought are known for this. If you go to Unity Village, where you get to see where Charles Fillmore, who is one of the co-founders of Unity, they have his chair in the fireplace. And you can go like through a museum and see where he sat for hours every single night. That was his practice, was just to sit in front of his fireplace, not reading books, just would sit there and contemplate truth. Just allow himself to contemplate these ideas that we hear all the time, but rather than just keep it on the surface, to really go deep within it. Ernest Holmes is known to just contemplate, the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living, contemplate ideas of truth for hours upon hours. And Joel Goldsmith, who's another book that we're reading, Thunder of Silence, is definitely a contemplator. Would take an idea. Soon we're going to get to, in Thunder of Silence, one of these Sundays I'll be referring to his third chapter as Beyond Power. To me, it's one of the most brilliant chapters written. I've I don't read the book all the time cover to cover, but I read that chapter many times because I've never read any description of what God's power is in more brilliance than I've read it in that chapter. It's so deep and it's so profound. And he got it by really sitting in that question. What is God's power? What does that even mean to have power? Usually it means we'll get into what it means. But that came from nothing than just sitting there and contemplating, what does that mean, God's power? And this incredible brilliance, revelations, insights, and has revealed itself. So this is the path of the reflective. And so I'm just also going to share, since we're starting with this one, and I'm following the 4 paths in the same way that it was laid out in Houston Smith's book. When I read this back in 1992, some of you already know this, it was, of the 4 paths, it was the path that I rejected the most because I was raised in such an intellectual family. And I was the feeling person. So I'm the feeling person. I'm the emotional one. They're all the thinking people. And school and environment and academics and knowledge was just pushed down my throat. And I hated it. And my friends loved it. I had really brilliant friends. And so I was very clear that I was not them. I loved them, but I wasn't them. I didn't think like them. I didn't like going to school. I didn't like writing papers. And I remember my friend, when she applied to colleges, that essay that you write, she wrote 15 drafts before she sent it in. And it worked. She got into every school. She went to University of Pennsylvania. I think she only applied to Ivy League schools. She was really bright and loved it and was brilliant at it. And I remember a conversation. She just looked at me and she just said, I don't get it, Harriet. You just don't seem to care that much. And you don't seem to be upset about it at all. How are you happy anyways? I'm like, I don't know. So that is my extent of how much I did not like this path. I heard path of knowledge, path of thinking, no. Myers-Briggs, strong, emotional score. But as I was reading this book in 1992, the first word in the first sentence, or a word in the first sentence, he used reflection. And that just sort of stopped me in my tracks. Because I don't think, but I realized I definitely reflect. And I remember one time my brother, who is a thinker, I think of him as a thinker, said to me, well, Harriet, you just reflect too much. I'm like, wait a minute, you're the thinker, I'm the feeler. What are you saying I reflect too much? But then I reflected on it. And I realized, oh my gosh, I've been doing this my whole life. I can't help but reflect on things. I reflect on everything. I hear a comment and I'm off. Thinking about it. And I never saw that part of myself before it because I had so thoroughly rejected it. And as I was realizing it, there was this voice that said, who I am and my path are one and the same. As I was saying, this is my path. Saying who I am and my path are one and the same. And as that realization happened, everything turned to light. The walls, I was in my apartment, the walls completely dissolved. There was nothing but light. I was suddenly seeing out on the streets. Then there was a homeless guy, and he was all light, and I was one with him. And it was just this amazing mystical experience. And then it went on into the night that I was lying in bed, and there was this word truth, and it was like rain. It was raining light down on me. So it's just this really big experience, and I'm like, Spirit really wants me to get this, that this is an essential part of my path, and I can't reject this part of myself anymore. It's not the only part. We're all 4 of the paths, but this was a part that I had so thoroughly and completely rejected that I was going to be in a lot of pain for a lot of my life if I kept rejecting this part of myself. So reflection isn't, so I want to, for those of you who may not be academically excited about things, I'm not a person who likes reading books. It's not about that. It's about allowing ideas to come alive in us, to think about them, and just, all it takes is one idea, and suddenly you're off contemplating. So it's this wonderful to me, maybe some of you other have this experience. If I'm reading something and I get really excited about it, I can't sit. It's in my body. I have to get up and I start walking around because the energy is like flying up and down my body. This is not just a mental experience. It's not the head cut off from the rest of the body. It's the whole body's involved. The emotions, everything's involved. Path of the reflective. Where are you on that? How has that come alive for you? Path of love. Path of devotion. Now, interestingly, Houston Smith says this is the most common path around the world, and it probably has been traditionally, although I think as we progress spiritually, it's become less so. One of the books we're looking at this year is Reign of Gold, and one of the things I noticed, I couldn't remember why I liked the book so much, and just as I've only just begun it, but what I recognized even from the very beginning, like Lupe wakes up and everything is God, and God's the sun is the right eye of God, and nature, everything is God. Her mother leads 3 prayer meetings a day. And I thought, and it just dawned on me this week, I don't read books where God is infused in the story. Most novels, most movies, most television shows, we don't hear about God or love, or if it is, it's sort of either flaky, and it's like, oh, the universe is protecting me, and then there's sort of a flaky character, or it's sort of a fundamentalist sort of looked down upon. But it's not as an integrative something that serious, real people incorporate in their everyday life, in their everyday conversation. In our spiritually progressive world, I would say that that devotional element is often the part that we don't often talk about. We've gotten so spiritually sophisticated, I actually think mindfulness meditation, I can say I do mindfulness meditation, and everyone would say, oh, that's wonderful. And I say, I just pour my heart out to God. Everything I do, I start saying, thank you, God, thank you, God. Well, I don't like the word God. And then I suddenly, is God separate from you? And who are you thanking? And we can get sort of a little bit negative or criticizing. We don't have to be. I mean, we don't always do. And I don't know how many of us feel comfortable going out into our work life being devotional. I'm reading this book, I'm thinking, oh, we aren't like that in our life. So what is devotion? Like devotion, calling forth this divine love and being in love with it. So the way it works, the way Houston Smith, I think he almost gets it right, but not quite. I'd love to correct him. Because he says, and I don't know where he gets this idea, he says that those on the devotional path love to have other. And so they love to devote themselves to God, but they don't ever want to become one with this presence. And that's not my understanding of people who are on this path. By the way, he does point out that Hindus see Christianity as a huge, just one big bhakti path of devotion. That Jesus is the main teacher and people love Jesus, and so that's the main energy behind the Christian religion. Certainly the monks that I read about absolutely want union with the divine, but they go at it not from the I am presence. In mindfulness meditation, we're just identifying as the I am. We're waking up as that one power, one presence as the I am. In devotion, it's the other, but you're getting to know oneness through communion. And in Zen Buddhism, they have this wonderful statement, not one, but not two. The mind can't go there. The heart can. How do you have one but two? How do I be an individual and yet completely unified with something? The heart understands that. The mind can't really go there. So devotional practice isn't always about keeping separation. That was the one part I didn't agree with, but it is about giving ourselves in complete love and devotion to love the Lord our God. However, love the Lord, the divine presence, I'm trying to think of other words, to love the infinite love intelligence of the universe, to love the I am that I am, to love great spirit, to love the I don't know, life. I keep, my words aren't flowing as much today. But all the many words that we use instead of God. I love it with my whole heart, body, mind, and soul. I do my spiritual practices. I live my life to open my heart and to see it in every person with whom I meet. To allow that wonderful bhakti devotion energy to infuse us. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling and tone. Just another aspect of devotion. I'll get to it. Love, devotion, loving other. It'll come back to me. So we'll return to that one. What is it? I don't know. Oh, yes. Oh, how could I forget that one? Yes. Oh, and by the way, the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, of all of the 4 paths, the only one where it says the most is of love. It does say it is of all the paths, it's the one that's the most full and richest, because to me the heart is the integration of heaven and earth, the upper chakras and the lower chakras. It's where everything gets integrated. So it does say that. So the third point I wanted to make about love and devotion is what they have in Hinduism. He used the word japan, and I always read it, but I've never said it out loud, so I don't know if that's does anyone here teach yoga? japan. It's prayer without ceasing. So in Christianity, it would be, Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. In Hinduism, they say lots of words for God. Ram, Ram, Ram. You just say the word God over and over. Or a phrase. We also call it mantra. You're saying a phrase over. That's a way of devotion. That's a devotional practice. And then I started thinking, the reason why I couldn't believe I forgot it is because I was contemplating it this week, and I thought, well, what would that be in our teaching, Centers for Spiritual Living, prayer without ceasing? Using an affirmative prayer. Like, how would you do an affirmative prayer without ceasing? So I was just thinking, there's one power, one presence. I am one with it. All that I am is the life and the power and the glory of the living God. It pours through every atom and cell of my being. I feel and know that presence in everything that I say and I do, and I feel how grateful I am to know this and feel this even now, and I release it unto the law of life, knowing that as I've released it, it is already done. And even as it is already done, I know there's only one power, one presence in the universe. It's in, through, and as all life, is all that I am, is all that we are. We are sitting here in the midst of the Lighthouse community, alive and awake, in pure spirit, free and unlimited joy, unlimited peace, abundance, greatness, and glory. Thank you, God, for the infinite loving presence here and now. And I release it into the law, knowing it is done. And then as I release it, I know there's only one power and one presence in the universe. And it is in, through, and has all creation. And God is alive and awake, is all creation. And we are one with it. And I feel that in joy that is coming alive. The seeds of creation is fulfilling itself as the heaven on earth, even now. And I give thanks and I release it. And so it is. And amen. And we just continue to do over that. I thought, wow. Wouldn't that be incredible as a path of devotion to be saying an affirmative prayer without ceasing? You're in a shower, you're doing dishes, and you're just doing affirmative prayer over and over. I know I did 5 hours at the prayer ministry at Agape once a week. It was a requirement. And at first we thought, anytime you hear requirement, I don't want to do it until you do it. Praying, and they get calls constantly. So praying for 5 hours, basically doing a prayer treatment, 5 hours. It's like you're walking on air when you leave. There's just nothing like it. So I think we're going to start doing that here. I was doing it this week because I started thinking about it. I'm like, oh, so maybe like every holidays we'll do a half hour of just chamber of prayer, prayer without ceasing, affirmative prayer, just 30 minutes, and then just go into stillness for half an hour. And we'll build. Maybe we can someday do more than a half an hour, but I think even a half an hour of affirmative prayer over and over would be really hard. And I did it really fast there, but you could also do it really slow. There's one power and there's one presence, and just like feel it and go slow that way. But that's devotion. That's why would we do that? Because what I also know is when we start doing something with that incredible heart and passion and devotion, and we pray like that, it's going to have such a vibrational impact on our being that we're going to forget. We're going to shut down. And we might not do it again for another 2 weeks or 3 weeks because it's so much. That's how powerful it is. It's going to have such a big impact on our frequency, both individually and collectively, that somehow a wall comes up. And that happens with all these practices. And so what is it that motivates us to remember and to push through those walls that want to forget, that wants it to stay small, that wants to stay comfortable and familiar? And we all are motivated by different things, but for me it's love that makes me want to wake up again, that wants me to remember even when I don't want to remember, to push through that wall. It's that love, it's that passion, that fire inside of us to want to know that this divine presence is greater than anything I can humanly imagine, and that I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I'm willing to do practices that I find exhausting or tiring, because it can be very tiring to shift your mind so much. But I'm willing to do that. That's love. To me, the fire in the belly is love. So paths, reflection, loving devotion. And the third one that we want to talk about today is service. And service, the idea of we all work, we all do things. The question is, what is the motivation behind all the doing? So I want to think about it. I'm sorry, I'm frog in my throat. We all do tasks. We all have jobs. We're always doing. Nobody's just sitting around thinking about God 100% or loving God 100%. We're doing. So it's really important for us to think about what's the place from which I'm doing, all my tasks every day. When I come, am I doing it from a place of service? Or am I doing it from a place to please myself? Again, going back to last week's talk, it is okay. Embrace your desires. If you are doing it to serve yourself, that's not wrong, that's not bad. Embrace it. And eventually you'll get to the point where we want something more. But it's not to judge ourselves, but it's just to become conscious. This is our path, and it's no one else's path. What is motivating me on my path? It might be I need to make money to pay bills so I can have the kind of life. That's fine. Embrace it and let it be. And is there any part of me that's ready to take it really deeper? That why I'm showing up to my job may be to make money, but it's also at the deepest level to serve the divine. To serve the divine in other people, to serve the divine somehow in the world. And so what he says is that, Houston Smith says, is that we approach service either from the jnana, the reflective mode, or from the devotional mode. So from the reflective mode there's a level of detachment. There's a level of the divine is using itself through and as me. I have no connection, I have no attachment or resistance to the outcome. Whether it works or doesn't work, it's not about that. I'm only allowing myself to be a vehicle, and I'm here to serve, to be as a vehicle moving through and as me. So there's incredible freedom and spaciousness. I shared this story once before because it had such an impact on me, and I'll share it again, of someone who really lived this. I had a previous center where I was. There was a gentleman who really wanted to create a structure of integral leadership. And I was supporting him. I was not doing it, but supporting. And they already had their structure of leadership, so he met with the leadership team. And there was about 300 or 400 people at the center. There's a lot of people involved. So he's getting the leadership team, talking about with this new idea of what it would look like, getting feedback, people who weren't liking it. He's meeting with one-on-one, spending hours upon hours. He said he's probably spent over 100 hours on it over a period of months. The whole time checking in with the minister, seeing how, and they were saying, yes, this is great. Did so much work on it, blood, sweat, and tears. We talked about it all the time. And by the end, he finally had this final product that came from all these conversations and meetings and time that he spent on his own creating it. And he presented it to the minister, and the minister said, I don't think it's time for that. We're not going to do it. Like, it wasn't maybe, or we'll take parts of it. Done. Not going to happen. And my immediate response was, are you kidding? You've been saying yes all this time. You spent all these hours meeting and time, and then you just say no? Like, I was shocked. His response was so different than mine. It's like, oh, well, I guess not. I said, you just spent all these hours talking with everybody, and this took you months and months to do. He said, that's all right. It wasn't meant to be. And he's someone who loves the Bhagavad Gita. He did it with detachment. I'm here to serve. I gave everything I have. I gave it in total excellence. I gave it to the best of my ability. She didn't want it. That's fine. And he let it go like that. That is what service with detachment looks like. How are we when we do service? How attached are we to the results, that people like what we do, and that if we invest our time, that they better darn well appreciate it, or do it at least. And so that was what it looks like from detachment. From the place of love, again, a little shift from the way Houston talks about it, because the way Houston talks about it, he does get to the final point, which there also is a level of detachment. But how you get there, I believe, in the path of devotion, is to see everything that you're doing is for God, and that the people that you're working for are God. Like, you see the face of God in every person that you talk with and have a conversation with. Every activity you're doing is God. Like, there's just this loving devotion of the one. And when we come from that place of everything that we do out of love for the person, out of being for... There is no right failure or success, because you're never outside of God. And as long as you're inside, and I keep using the word God, I apologize. It comes easily for me. Translate in your head to the word that works for you. That you're giving all of you what you want to this divine presence over and over. Everything is this incredible love and devotion. And if you're in that energy all of the time, it's impossible to fail. Because there's never anything outside of God. There's nothing that's happening that's outside of God. Something's not going well, you see it that's the eyes of love. See the eyes of God. If someone is profoundly poor, as I'm thinking about Lupe, she sees with the eyes of God in everything. Everything is rich to her. She doesn't even really fully realize that she's poor because her heart's so wide open. If our heart's wide open, there is no failure ever. Ever. That's the devotional way of doing service. What does that look like for you? When you're doing your tasks at home, when you come here and do tasks, when you do tasks at your work, your job, your project, from what place are you doing your tasks? Are you doing it with a place of normal human, I need to get a paycheck, which is fine. I have an outcome that I really want to see happen, totally fine. There are people who've made big changes, good changes in our planet because they have an intention, a dream of what they want to see, and that really matters to them to get that intention, to get that intention fulfilled. So I'm not saying that's bad. That's very good. Embrace it. And if your desire is to wake up to God more than anything else in the universe, to even let go of that and to say, I'm here of service, and I allow myself to be used of service in a detached kind of way or in totally devotional kind of way. How are you showing up in your life? What is your path? So these are 3 of the paths, before we get to the experiential, to really contemplate this. Well, I would contemplate them. For those of you who don't contemplate, I don't know how you not contemplate. I don't get it. If I don't ask you to contemplate, what do I ask you to do? Just do the paths, darn it. That's the doing, the loving. Just love the path. Just love your path. You don't have to understand it. Just love it, right? Would that be a devotional way? So I am going to ask you to contemplate. I can't help it. So this week, what is your path? We're looking at all aspects of our path. We're including it with last week. Our desires, embracing all of our desires, being honest about what our desires are. If we're not being honest about them, then they're just being repressed and pushed away, and they're still there. They're still running us. To be honest about all aspects of our desires, and how do those desires outpicture in our desire of awakening in pure spirit as the one power and the one presence. Reflection, contemplation, mindfulness, discernment, devotion, love, and service. And like I said, I think they all work wonderfully together. As I've been reading about these monks, one of the things that continually fascinates me, because I see them as being primarily devotional, and yet constantly throughout their writing is, you have to develop the watcher. You'll never really be fully devotional if you don't develop this witness. They call it the watcher, but we call it the witness, because they have to work together. All of these work together. So it's not about which one are you not, but how are they all working together for you, because we all have different dynamics. Are you willing to do that? And as I said, the first time I read this was 1992. I just reread it all this past week. I still love it. To me, it's so rich. It's so full. There's so much there to be revealed and continually revealed. So even if you've been contemplating this already in your life and knowing where you are, revisit it. There's so much. This is what we're here for, right? We're on a spiritual path to wake up, to know the truth. How am I doing it? Oh, and what's also fun, just as a fun game, is what do I think other people's predominant paths are? And when I was thinking about it with Groundhog Day. We have a Groundhog, our movie, this Saturday. And I was thinking, well, I wonder what Bill Murray's character, what his desires are. How's that running him in the Groundhog Day? What is his path of waking up? As you're watching movies or reading books, what's desires are running these main characters? What is their path of consciously waking? It's fun to ask these questions, so to start applying it not just to yourself, but to other people, to groups of people. Many things. What's happening with this Women's March, man, yesterday? Wasn't that awesome? Ooh, how many people marched yesterday? Nice, way to go. I looked at it when I was sharing. It's fantastic, this Women's March. What's that path of waking up? What's that looking like? What's the goal? What's the intention? It's wonderful. It's happening all the time, all 4 of these paths, this path of waking up. We're all part of it, everyone on this planet, not just in this room. All right, so we're going to play this week. As I also offered and invited last week, keep talking with each other. We inspire one another when we have these conversations, so don't keep them just to yourself. Talk to each other how they're being animated and alive for you. Can you do that? So we'll do a little slower one today and just give thanks for the power and the presence. This infinite love intelligence that is in, through, and as all creation, and yet transcends all creation. It is infinitely free from all phenomena, from all time, from all space, from all dimensions, from anything that we could ever humanly conceive. It is vast, unlimited presence, beingness, and yet is the ground of all being. It is who and what each and every one of us is. We are made in the image and likeness of this pure presence. in all of its variety and all of its uniqueness and all of its beauty and all of its harmony and love and goodness and abundance and freedom and peace and joy. We are all beautiful, flowering expressions of the One. And we allow ourselves to feel into all aspects of our own beautiful path. Our own beautiful path that is who we are, this beautiful flower that we are. The roots, even the dirt that surrounds the root, all the stuff that really gives it depth and richness and fertilization. We can feel that in our own life, the richness of even those dark periods, the womb, where so much is happening. So much beautiful, creative energy, infinite possibilities, and it starts pouring through in every aspect of our being as we continue to grow into our beautiful, unique self in form, where others can see us and know the divine presence as is never known in anybody else on this planet. The divine is known in no other way as it is known as you. And so I celebrate and give thanks for each and every beautiful, unique emanation in this room here today, this beautiful bouquet of pure spirit. The essence and the fragrance of spirit is alive. It fills us. It soothes us. It heals us. Any place in our lives that feels separate, or we have walls of separation that creates so much pain, we allow the love and the beauty and this fragrance to melt those walls. Our absolute devotion to know the truth of who and what we really are, to dissolve those walls of fear, of pain, of hurt, of separation, of constriction. For this love loves itself so profoundly and is infinitely patient to allow all those walls to dissolve. It's in no hurry. It loves, and it loves, and it loves some more. And every aspect of our being is loved. There's no place that goes unloved. No hidden dark corner that goes unloved and goes unseen by the divine presence. And even as we know this about our own life, we know this about all those people who are in our sphere, in our circle of influence, our family, our friends, our co-workers. We know the power and the presence and the love of God is right where they are. We see and know the wholeness and the perfection of pure spirit in, through, and as all aspects of our life, all the people, the situations, and the circumstances. We stay attuned to the truth of that which already is and always shall be. And from that place, we know situations and circumstances are shifting even now, moving into alignment, into greater order, into greater abundance, into greater harmony, into greater joy and peace than we could have ever possibly humanly imagined. We allow the divine its full sway, that one power and the one presence where there is no opposite, to fully have its way in, through, and as each and every one of us in all of our life. And as we know this for our life, we bless and give thanks for all the wonderful energy that is moving through this wonderful country, this feminine face of God that is asking to be seen and made visible as never before. We give thanks for her presence showing up and saying, yes, I am here. I am valuable. I am essential to heaven on earth on this planet. And we celebrate her light and her power and her grace coming alive and activated in our country here today. Always. And we give thanks that all this is happening for us individually and collectively. It's happening for the entire planet. That this planet is waking up to the beauty and the magnificence of heaven on earth, and in the marriage of all seeming opposites is happening now. And all battles are turning into dances. We are all making love to that divine beloved in every situation and circumstance all over the planet. There is only love. We see it, we know it, and through this conscious awareness, we are activating its energy and knowing and truth here and now throughout all life. It all starts here, in this room, in our hearts, in our very being. For this knowing and for its fulfillment even now, I just say thank you, infinite and eternal one, divine Mother, Father, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We release this word into the law of life, knowing that as we have spoken it is already done. And with great joy and infinite peace, we release it, we let it be, and we say together, and so it is. Amen.
And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. Amen.
Amen.